The other thing that we touched on at the start was obviously compliance. That's a really big one, PCI compliance. Now, I suppose the first thing is we should define what PCI actually means, and what does it take to be PCI compliant?
It's a good question. So, and yeah, again, it's probably not something that's commonly known, but so PCI is a set of security standards formed in 2004 by Visa, MasterCard, Discover, JCB International, and American Express. So the compliance scheme aims to secure credit and debit card transactions against theft and fraud. So I guess I'll start off with some classic examples based off my experience of, I guess, non-PCI compliant practices. And obviously I won't name and shame any hotels or customers that we've worked with. But, things like you mentioned earlier, capturing credit card information on an express check-in form when it gets arrived at the hotel and then storing that on a desk. I mean, I'm sure that just goes without saying that that's not very secure. And we have seen in the past where even, credit card numbers are written down on an express check-in form that's left on the front desk, and, a guest may check in and see that form sitting on the desk. And, I think you can probably guess where I'm going with that, but yeah, it isn't very secure. And then obviously that puts not only the cardholder at risk, but also the hotel at risk for not having measures in place to protect their guest credit card information. So I guess the way that we, combating such challenges with, payment integration, other solutions, one of which is tokenization. Yeah. So, a lot of hotels, when they hear tokenization, they get a little bit nervous because, they're very used to having access to the full card number, and they think, well, if we don't have access to the full card number and we only have a token, how do we process a refund, or how do we void the transaction? What a lot of hotels don't realize is that tokenization, that token is just replacing the credit card number. So in an integrated payments world, for example, the PMS will store that token, and then any subsequent transaction, whether it be, a completion or a charge or a void or a refund, that token is used to process that particular transaction. So we provide a fully hosted tokenized platform. So we encrypt the credit card data at a terminal level. Okay. So the terminal encrypts the data, which is then sent back to us. So we're not sending the full card number from the payment terminal to our hosted environment. We're actually sending an encrypted message, and then our host and our token vault actually fully tokenizes that credit card number and stores that on our system, which is obviously PCI compliant, and then sends the token back to the PMS, and then that token is stored. Some other measures as well, particularly in an e-commerce space. So obviously there's tokenization there as well, but with e-commerce, a lot of our solutions offer what we call 3DS Secure, which is essentially two-factor authentication, right? So as you'd probably know, I'm assuming you mentioned before that you have your card on your mobile phone. I would assume if you went to log into your bank or pay for things on certain websites, that once you enter your credit card number, you'll then be redirected to your issuing bank to enter a code that's sent to your phone. So 3DS Secure is essentially doing that. So the guest will enter their credit card number, and then they have to redirect to the issuing bank's website, and then they send that code to their phone. So it's highly unlikely that somebody has access to somebody's credit card and the phone number they have registered against that card. So what that does for a hotel is significantly reduce their risk to fraudulent chargebacks from banks. And I guess just in general, reduces fraudulent activity.
Makes sense. And just picking up on that tokenization point again, because you're right, I think a lot of hoteliers are concerned that once the card has been tokenized, then they can't see it. And you're right, you don't see it as a credit card number anymore, but you can process transactions against it, as you said. Is there any way, if they needed to untokenize it, let's just say, heaven forbid, but the police came and said, we believe that the credit card that was used at your property is now, been involved in certain instances, we need those details from you. The hotel would make contact with Currency Select and you could provide that. Is that how it would work? Or
part of our PCI, I guess, regulations and obligations is that we don't provide full credit card information, in a particular case like that where, law enforcement is involved. obviously they would take the appropriate approach with us to request that information. There's no other scenario where that information would be passed on to, just anybody. Without getting too technical, so with our, integrated solution, you have different transaction types. And one of the things in particular with tokenization is we have two transaction message types. One is what we call a get token, where essentially you're sending off a credit card number to be tokenized and return a token.
Yep.
And get pan, which reaches out to our host and pulls back full credit card number. Now, where that is used is with, some hotels, or majority of hotels will have other systems integrated to their property management system. So, for example, a central reservation system, certain central reservation systems don't support tokens and only support the uploading of a full card number.
Yep.
So in that scenario, the integrated solution can reach out to us for the pan, pull that back and upload that into such systems as a central reservation system.
Understand, but it's not in plain sight. And so you don't have those issues, as you said, of a credit card number being lying around and accessible to anyone.
That's correct. It's all done behind the scenes. And as I mentioned earlier, on the actual payment terminal, the payment terminal has the smarts to encrypt the credit card number at the terminal. And then the actual message that's coming back to us for tokenization is that encrypted message. So there isn't the visibility of that card number, even in that message. And then I guess from a hotel point of view, so they don't have the full card number anywhere. So within their PMS, they may have visibility of the truncated PAN, so they might have the last 4 digits.
Yep.
And the associated token. And then the receipts that print from our terminal, for example, will have the token and the last 4 digits. So if a hotel's requesting that it gets represent their card, they can still marry up the last 4 digits to make sure that it's the same card. But in doing the whole tokenization of card data, we're actually removing that from PCI scope. So each hotel, and I mean the majority of people that work in hotels may not know this, but their IT teams are likely filling out an annual, security PCI health check, where essentially they're going through there's a whole heap of questions and they're going through all their solutions and, basically checking for any vulnerabilities. So with implementing solutions such as PMS and point of sale integration, e-commerce, where, as I mentioned, we've got 3DS Secure, they don't have the credit card information stored anywhere.
Yeah.
So 3DS Secure, the guest is entering their card information. They've got the 2-factor authentication with their bank. Again, the full card number is not being passed on to the hotel. A guest checking in that presents their card, again, their card number is being tokenized. So the guests can also have the peace of mind and reassurance that their card information isn't being stored or shared with anybody else as well.
Yep. That's great.